Next up, let's talk about some things you can do to maybe impress your broker, or some good habits you could form again, so that we're working towards building that relationship with your broker so that you can become the teacher's pet is what we're calling it. But here's just a short list of ideas to help build that. Review your office policies. Know the office policies, which are separate from the law, separate from your board rules, separate from the code of ethics. Maybe you've got office policies around where you can smoke on the premises, what you've got to wear when you come to the office, what dress attire you need, parking, whether you can bring a gun into the office, right? All these things, right? Harassment, what to do in case of a fire emergency. There might be a variation of these office policies. Read them, know where they're located. I'm going to say a review on them would be helpful. Now, as brokers, this means that you've got to have office policies. You got to make sure that they're actually written for your agents, whether they're licensed or unlicensed. You might have a couple different sets to share. They've got to be in a spot where they're readily available, that agents can get their hands on them. So is that a physical book in a training room? Is it access that they have to a Google file? Make sure that it's easy for them. And if you're going to change or add or delete an office policy, again, that goes back to what's your communication program so that the information is getting out to your agents. Number two is research the law. We rely on our brokers for all of these questions. That's great. I think that's what they're there for, is to have a good working knowledge of the law for you. However, you've got access to research some of these things too. You can go to the Professional Licensing Bureau, again, plb.iowa.gov. That's where you're going to go to renew your license anyway. All of the Iowa Code 543B and the Administrative Rules 193E are there, plus disclosure law, land law, and a couple of other things. And there's a good list there that is easy to break down. Broker responsibilities, disciplinary actions, prohibited practices. All of that is detailed, broken down on that list. Instead of calling your broker at 11:30 at night, and sometimes you need to, I get it. But what have you researched on your own to help collaborate? What working knowledge do you really have of the law on your own? Okay. Next up is keep your data safe. And I think brokers need a plan for this. Don't get me wrong. But you as an agent, I think, have some opportunity to help your broker and impress them. Are you working on unsecured connections when you're out and about or traveling? If you're doing wire transfers, are you sending emails that say wire transfer? Or are you trying to code it with something like apple pie recipe? What procedures do you have in place that complement your brokerage to keep your data safe, your client's data safe? You maybe really aren't, excuse me, housing that much stuff, but you probably are housing some. And again, we're looking at things that might be above and beyond that you've not thought of, but how to impress your broker. That might be one to think about. Putting your client's best interest first. This is kind of a code of ethics one. We want our commission checks, right? We've got a livelihood to support, and I'm all for it, right? I'm all for you cashing those commission checks. But what are you doing to put your client's interest first? The laws that we have around the code of ethics and the laws that we have that hold a license with the real estate commission, all of these things are put in place, not necessarily for you, but to protect the public. So what are you doing to put your client's best interest first? We call that loyalty, right? The fiduciary responsibility of loyalty. Next is to stay connected. Are you showing up to the office if you've got a brick and mortar? Are you staying engaged with them? Or has your broker not heard from you in a bazillion years? Some of those things are okay. And I know as a lot of us are working remotely and maybe we don't have those brick and mortar offices like we used to, the rules of that have changed a lot. But I do want you to ask yourself, if I called my broker right now, said, hey, this is Amy Schaefer, I've got a question for you about a transaction, would they know who you are? Or they'd be like, Amy, oh gosh, that name sounds familiar. If it's been that long and you question it, it might be time to just send an email and check in or pop into the office. But I would say stay connected. Turn in compliant and complete files. Your broker, this is one of the lists, this is why they're the broker, right? This is the level of responsibility. We talked about lawsuits and trust accounts and unlicensed stuff, all these things that your broker is responsible for. They need compliant files to help them, okay? Your brokers get audited, not just for the trust account and the books for our earnest money checks, but when they're audited, they also will just have files audited. And they're looking to make sure that there are complete contracts, complete listing agreements, seller disclosures, and if they met if they actually really did meet the requirement for being exempt. And then another big one is lead-based paint. And again, if we miss a lead-based paint that should have been there, the fine is huge. I think it's $11,000 right now. And everyone's going to get that fine. Here is how your broker gets audited. You maybe have heard me say this in another course. I'm going to say there's about 3 general ways a broker can get audited. One, there's an appointment where the auditor comes that works for the real estate commission and has an appointment. They pull a selection randomly of files and go through them to make sure they're in some sort of Robert's Rule of Orders and it's complete. Another way they might do it is, I believe, setting up an appointment where they do a screen share, right? They work together on a computer, but they screen share. That's probably an appointment as well. Here's the third one, and the nerve-wracking one, is they randomly show up your broker's office, trust account auditor, and then they randomly want to pull files as well and review them. Oh, heart attack, right? You imagine if someone just showed up at your house and wanted to do some sort of inspection of your checkbook, right? And all of your files to make sure that you still had kept your IRS documents for 7 years. That is a trip. And in order to set them up for success, they want compliant and complete files. Now, as a broker, that means I'm also going to suggest, if you want people to be your teacher's pet, you've got to be a good teacher and get checklists in place. Get some sort of compliancy fact checker in place. Maybe that's a staff person. Whatever it is, you got to be a good teacher too, right? But to be a teacher's pet, make sure that you're doing that. I know some brokers that if you do not have a complete compliant file, they don't turn over a commission check even after the deal is closed until you get all those things submitted. And I have agents that push back on me with that. Can you believe my broker does this? And I say, yes, I can believe it. Because it's their license on the line, and without their license, you don't have one either. Right? This is a big hot button for me. Another thing I hear agents say, we all have different behavioral, styles. Some of us are chatty Cathys, we're super outgoing. Some of us are drivers, right? We're risk takers. We just go get stuff done. Some of us are a little bit more steady, a little bit more hesitant, a little bit more humble. We're not the first one to maybe raise our hand in a team meeting, yet we love to participate. And some of you are rule followers, right? You want all the I's crossed, no, I's dotted, T's crossed. You're very detail oriented. We're all a mixed bag of these behaviors, right? I basically gave you a short version of a DISC profile. So if you're a high D, a high driver, and you hate paperwork, or the person that's really compliant loves paperwork, you say, I just can't get all this paperwork done. I'm a high D. That's not my style. No, honey. Guys, that's an excuse. You signed up to be a real estate agent. You've got to be a real estate agent. And part of that means doing complete paperwork for your broker. I don't want any of you to get a violation. And I want all of you to get commission checks when you close. I don't want there to be a delay. You've already waited 30 to 60 days for it. Please don't make it worse. So when your office asks for things, even though you're busy and you want to drop everything you're doing to roll your eyes, stop. But even before that, if you've got something that compliancy is constantly kicking back as incomplete, maybe from your office, and you want to complain, oh, they tell me all the time if this is wrong. You can choose that attitude. I get it. Or you can put a system in place so they stop emailing you about that issue. Okay. So if you've got some systems in place to help protect you, or hire an assistant to help you, right? Your lack of planning on these things isn't anyone else's problem. So again, I know that brokers need to have things in place for you and policies in place for how they want compliant and complete files. But this one is really a foundational one for me. And obviously I've completely gone off the rails and on my soapbox, so I'll stop. Next up is create systems to prevent future mistakes. I think I hit that one with the last example. But in a transaction, if you constantly have something that's, you're hitting your head against the wall, everyone's forgetting to transfer their utilities before closing, right? Create a system for it. Create a system. That's the thing about checklists. Your broker may give you a basic one. That is a living, breathing document for you that can be changed and adjusted however you need it. Next up is help other agents. Remember, someone once upon a time helped you. And I know in a day and age where maybe more of us are working from home than ever possible, engaging with the other agents in our office is different, or engaging with maybe new agents in your office is completely different. You don't even know who some of these people are. I get it. But if someone asks you for help and raises their hand, I'm not saying that you go to $1 million listing appointment 20 minutes late, but I am suggesting that you help or be willing to help and lend a hand whenever possible. Last but not least is ask questions. It scares me when I used to do client calls to agents to check in, see how things were going, and they'd have a really important question. And I would think, oh my gosh, what if I didn't just randomly call you today? How would you have gotten that question answered? It really kind of, it made me feel bad that they didn't reach out, but it made me feel bad that maybe they didn't know who to reach out to. So as a broker, let maybe people know your office hours and when they can ask questions. Or maybe you have mentors, a mentor program. Have a plan for it as a broker, but as an agent, if you've got a question, ask it. I know sometimes we all hear the phrase, there's no such thing as a stupid question. And then we hear a question, we think, oh, that was stupid. I'm not going to go down that same path and ask a stupid question. Stop it. Get over yourself. If you've got a question, ask it, work it out. You never know. It could be the thing that just opens up your world to a whole new pool of knowledge. So please ask questions. And of course, brokers, be available to answer them as well. I hope that this was a helpful list on how to impress your broker. Again, good luck in becoming the teacher's pet.